After years of doubt, the stars are shining again. A talented pool of young generation has lit up the spirit of the nation. The Harambee Stars have undoubtedly resurrected. The evidence? The ongoing African Nations Championship 2024, co-hosted by Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. This broadcast tonight talks ball with footballers, and the bench will be graced by former national team coach Jacob Ghost Mulee, who will be in the esteemed company of Dennis Oliech, the ambassador for the ongoing CHAN 2024 and a former national team player, as well as Boniface Ambani, former Kenyan international footballer, and Sam Sholei, who formerly served at Football Kenya Federation. It will be about soccer management, the administration, the tactical dugout, their views on Benny McCarthy, preparations for AFCON 2027, not ruling out the qualification pathway for the World Cup in 2030. I am Ayub Abdikadir. The top stories tonight.
It is not possible that committees of parliament demand to be bribed to write reports or to look the other way.
Committees of extortion. President Ruto accuses lawmakers of demanding bribes from governors and cabinet secretaries in exchange of favorable reports. Cost of indiscipline. Confederation of African Football fines Kenya over security breach during the Morocco-Kenya match last Sunday, as the state creates 6 fan zones to avoid further penalties.
We are about to make a decision as government to see if we can inter the remaining parts or bodies because of lack of any further people have come out for DNA.
Over 300 bodies yet to be identified. Government now says it will be forced to bury the identified bodies exhumed from Shakahola forest.
Their absence would be felt across our operations, in our meetings, and in the small and everyday moments that make KPC not just any other workplace.
Family and KPC staff light candles in remembrance of 9 employees killed last week at Morendat in Naivasha. Njoki Shege is our sign language interpreter. Tonight, President William Ruto has opened what could turn out to be a clash between the executive and legislature, accusing members of the National Assembly of breeding corruption in demanding bribes from cabinet secretaries and governors. The head of state, while addressing the devolution conference in the county of Homa Bay, also called out members of the bicameral parliament who he said have turned house committees into money-minting rings instead of exercising oversight responsibilities. Stephen Leto begins our coverage tonight with the following report.
President William Ruto says Parliament has turned into a den of graft.
There is something going on in our legislature that we must call out. There is money being demanded from the executive, from governors, from ministers, from people in the executive, especially those who go for accountability before our houses of parliament.
President Ruto veered off from his speech, pointed directly to unnamed committees of parliament that he says have turned to extortion rings.
It cannot continue to be business as usual. It is not possible that committees of parliament demand to be bribed, demand to be paid for them to write reports or to look the other way for what is happening in either the national government or the county government.
The head of state again turned his salvos on the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and demanded for a crackdown.
I have made it absolutely clear to the chair of the Anti-Corruption Commission, to the CEO of the Anti-Corruption Commission, that there will be no sacred cows and there will be no telephone call from anywhere below or above to stop anybody from being prosecuted for matters corruption.
The president said after he assented to the Conflict of Interest Bill, all agencies mandated with tackling corruption must step up their efforts and make a wholesome approach in ensuring culprits are brought to book within the shortest time possible. Senate Speaker Emerson Kingi, on his part, defended Parliament, taking on governors accusing them of frustrating oversight by the Senate.
Senate committees have had to encounter hostilities when they visit counties in exercise of the oversight mandate.
We must hold the executive to account. Parliament is not a branch of the executive. We must be bold, whether the experts are our friends or not. We have passed legislation.
President Ruto also decried what he described as the judiciary providing relief for suspects sought for offences such as graft.
Somebody who has stolen public funds and then goes to court and gets something called anticipatory bail makes it impossible for such a person to be arrested and prosecuted.
President Ruto, who had earlier toured several development projects in Homa Bay, said corruption continues to pull back gains made and to erode public confidence. Stephen Letos, Citizen TV.
The head of state while in Homa Bay County also reaffirmed his commitment to strengthen devolution after assenting to 2 bills that will strengthen, according to the head of state, the county assemblies. Speaking on Wednesday, the president outlined the benefits of the gazettement of 14 functions, as well as 80,000 pieces of immovable assets to the devolved units. And as Laura Otieno details in the following report, counties have also committed to sealing loopholes, which will enhance revenue collection for the good of the people.
12 years after the country transitioned to the devolved governance system, the head of state has rubber-stamped authority, vowing to strengthen the 47 autonomous units. While opening the 9th Devolution Conference in Homa Bay County, President William Ruto emphasized the need for accountability, announcing the signing of the County Public Finance Law Amendment Bill 2023 and the County Revenue Allocation Bill, which will ensure autonomy for county assemblies, which had for long been held by the grip of governors.
I now ask the county assemblies to effectively undertake their responsibilities, effectively provide oversight, efficiently legislate for counties to perform their mandate, and also robustly represent the people who elected them.
Can create an identity. While acknowledging challenges still bedeviling devolved units, especially on the trickling down of resources, the county chiefs outlined the gains made so far, with various partners calling for closer collaboration.
Our task is to make devolution work for all Kenyans, deliver equity, inclusion and social justice, closing the socio-economic divide.
Counties collected Kenya shillings 58.95 billion in the financial year 2023-24, which is 72.5% of their target, marking the highest revenue performance in 11 years.
We are encouraging the county governments also to set aside some money for them to make sure that they take care of those who are quite down. We are not able to cover everybody.
County assemblies have emerged as the biggest winners in this year's devolution conference, with President William Ruto vowing to sign various bills into law, as well as sealing corruption loopholes in order to strengthen devolution. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV, in Homa Bay County.
A petition has been filed challenging the alleged takeover of the police payroll by the Inspector General of Police, terming the move unconstitutional. The case filed by Sharia Mtani and lawyer Shadrack Wamboi pits the National Police Service against the National Police Service Commission in a dispute over who should control the National Police Service payroll management. Melita Oletenges reports on the standoff of the National Police Service versus its employer, the National Police Service Commission.
Once she hands over, you write back to the committee.
The fight for the police payroll has jumped from boardrooms to the courtroom. Lobby groups through lawyer Dunstan Omari have moved to court to stop the management of the payroll by the Inspector General of Police, stating that it is a preserve of the National Police Service Commission under Article 246(3) of the Constitution, which states that the Commission shall recruit and appoint persons to hold or act in offices in the service, confirm appointments and determine promotions and transfers within the National Police Service. The Commission shall also exercise disciplinary control over and remove persons holding or acting in offices within the service and perform any other functions prescribed by national legislation. According to the court documents, the dispute was first made public on August 4, 2025 and had earlier been raised before the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee, PAC, which directed the IG to hand over payroll management to the NPSC, citing its role as the employer of police officers. Despite this directive, the petition alleges that the IG has continued to assert control over the payroll systems. The petitioners are seeking conservatory orders to restrain the IG and the NPS from altering or managing the payroll pending determination of the case. The payroll impasse was also the key subject during the vetting of nominees for chairperson and member of the commission, Yuda Komoro and Angeline Yamiton Siparo, who appeared before the Committee on Internal Security, chaired by Gabriel Tongoyo.
Recently, there have been a lot of push and pull between the National Police Service and the National Police Service Commission, especially in regards to the payroll. And of course, if approved by these members, you are going to be in a very critical position of a chair.
For as long as the National Police Service Commission has an opportunity to oversee, to audit whatever that goes into the payroll, then this debate of whether the physical payroll, where it should sit, is a matter that can be discussed and agreed.
Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen had promised to mediate, but so far the stalemate stands. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights now wants victims of demonstrations to receive more than just monetary compensation. The Commission is urging the Special Committee to review the cases on reparation basis to ensure accountability and justice are upheld. The call comes as the Commission is unveiled a report on the right to defend rights, highlighting the state of human rights defense in the country over the past 2 years, as Brenda Wanga tells us in the following report.
Days after President William Ruto appointed Professor Makau Mutua to head a team tasked with crafting modalities for compensating victims of protest and demonstration, the state-sponsored human rights body, KNCHR, says the current scope of work is insufficient.
So I think the question we need to ask ourselves, and I think the approach the Commission is taking, is we need to look at compensation within the broader concept of reparations.
According to the Commission, victims of deaths arising from protests and demonstrations deserve more than just monetary compensation.
What the President possibly and the team have done is to look at just one of the aspects of reparations. And it will be important that as the team goes around doing its work, would be possibly, number one, to broaden its area of work.
But beyond broadening the mandate, the Commission also wants the timelines for the task extended to ensure all victims are covered. President William Ruto had given the team 120 days from the day of the proclamation to conclude its task of establishing a coordinating framework for the compensation of victims of protests and riots, both civilians and security personnel who lost their lives or suffered bodily harm in public protests and riots from 2017.
The period that has been given to the task force is, I think, very short. If you look at 120 days, we need to do proper profiling, we need to do proper reaching out, we need to do public participation.
And as the debate over compensation and the format it should take continues, A new commission report on the right to defend human rights defenders indicts the government for failing to uphold these very rights.
Our findings show a stark reality that on paper, Kenyan Constitution and its ratification of international treaties create a strong foundation for human rights. However, in practice, the defenders still face threats, intimidation, arbitrary arrest, and in some cases, violence.
Of course, with the state being one of the violators, I think it's important to note that while the state is the primary duty bearer when it comes to promotion and protection of human rights, the state is also apparently the greatest violator. So greatest violator when it comes to provision of services, greatest violator when it comes to sharing of resources, greatest violator in terms of corruption and all that.
The report covers a period from 2020 to 2022, during which 7 human rights defenders were killed, 2 were forcibly disappeared, while 132 were arbitrarily arrested. According to the report's findings, Kenyans easily access information, but the misapplication of the Public Order Act continues to limit Kenyans' freedom to hold peaceful assemblies. The Commission now wants Kenya to implement the laws guaranteeing freedoms and rights fully. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
The Confederation of African Football has fined Football Kenya Federation 6.5 million shillings for multiple safety and security breaches during the match between hosts Kenya and Morocco. Kenya also risks losing the right to host the remaining Harambee Stars fixtures if similar violations occur, with CAF warning that further lapses could force matches to be relocated in response. The local organizing committee has announced corrective measures, including designated fan watch zones for supporters without match-day tickets to ensure full compliance with the set standards by the Confederation of African Football. Here's Ben Kiroi.
The chaotic scenes at Moi International Sports Center Kasarani during Sunday's CHAN qualifier between Kenya and Morocco have come back to haunt Kenya, with the Confederation of African Football CAF fining the Football Kenya Federation FKF 6.5 million Kenya shillings for multiple security and safety breaches. 3 days after the incident, CAF delivered a scathing assessment of the events, warning that if similar lapses recur, Kenya could be stripped of its hosting rights for the remaining Harambee Stars matches. The matches will then be relocated to alternative venues in the co-hosting countries of Tanzania or Uganda. CAF accused the FKF of gross negligence, citing incidents where fans, many without tickets, overran security barricades and forced their way into the stadium, resulting in overcrowding far beyond the stadium's safe capacity. In a detailed statement, the Continental Football Body highlighted several breaches, including the collapse of gate control, perimeter fence violations, and a breakdown of order at key exit points. The situation was further compounded by initial crowd control failures at the Ngomongo roundabout, which allowed uncontrolled access through multiple entry gates. CAF also criticized the conduct of Kenyan security forces, citing the use of tear gas, flash grenades, and even live ammunition near spectators and staff, actions that triggered panic within the stadium. Additional security lapses, including reports of stone-throwing incidents targeting police officers and hazardous vehicle movement within spectator zones. Following Monday's deliberations, CAF announced a reduction in Kasarani's attendance capacity for Kenya's upcoming fixture against Zambia. Only 60% of the stadium will be allowed to be filled, capping attendance at 27,000 fans for the final Group A match of the 2024 African Nations Championship CHAN.
Yes, yeah.
In a bid to ensure safety and compliance, the Kenyan government has announced the establishment of 6 official fan zones across Nairobi. The zones aim to provide a secure and festive viewing experience while reducing pressure on the stadium.
We have had a number of gaps. Some of these gaps have led to sanctions to FKF. And I want to say that as government, we have taken note and we have assured CAF that we will support FKF to ensure that those gaps are properly covered.
Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports Salim Vuria confirmed the locations, which include Uhuru Park, Lakisama Ngomongo behind Kasarani Stadium, Dandora Stadium, Utalii, Jacaranda Grounds, and Kibera DC Grounds.
It's Daniel Mwandi with a chance to shoot, takes a deflection, it's come the way of Ogam. Ogam turns left, fires home!
Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The government plans to inter all unidentified bodies exhumed from Shakahola in Kilifi County after it emerged that the process of identification through DNA samples is taking longer than expected. Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen says families have not presented themselves, hindering the conclusion of the process. And as Marianne Nyambura now reports, over 300 bodies are yet to be identified.
2 years since the shocking discovery of the Shakahola massacre, and a year since the exhumation and identification process began, the quest for closure has stalled. The reason? Families either failing to come forward or unable to afford DNA testing.
They were from all over the country, Baringo, Vika walikuwa wengi, Siaya, Kisumu, all those places. Now, relatives in that place do not know that the person they lost actually went to Shakahola and they died there. So they are not even presenting themselves for DNA test.
At a media roundtable in Nakuru, CS Murkomen warned that the deadlock could force the government to consider another path.
We are about to make a decision as government to see if we can inter the remaining parts or bodies because of lack of any further people have come out for DNA, and maybe just create a memorial center within the Shakahola itself.
Out of 453 bodies exhumed from shallow graves in the vast Shakahola forest, 333 DNA samples were collected. Only 66 victims have been identified through DNA matches or physical recognition, while the rest remain in cold storage at the Malindi sub-county mortuary 2 years on.
It's also they take advantage of the vastness and the of the land we are talking about an area of forest of 100,000 acres and so forth.
In March this year, the identification process came to a halt after the government chemist cited a lack of testing kits and the high cost of importing them, leaving families desperate and unable to bury their loved ones. The process has never resumed.
Limetuweka standby. Limetuweka hostage. We are not moving on.
Marianne Nyambura, Citizen TV.
Families, friends and staff of the Kenya Pipeline Company gathered at the Kenya Pipeline Company Morendat Institute grounds in Naivasha to honor and celebrate 9 colleagues killed in last week's train accident. The tragedy occurred when a staff bus collided with a Kenya Railways cargo train at Morendat. Kenya Pipeline Company, led by the Managing Director Joe Sang, has assured families that investigations are underway and findings will be made public. The company has also pledged to pursue compensation for those lost. Willie Lusige has that report.
Grief and sorrow fill the air at the Kenya Pipeline Company Morendat Institute in Naivasha as colleagues, friends and families gather to mourn 9 lives cut short in the Morendat train tragedy. The fatal crash happened when a Kenya Railways cargo train slammed into a KPC staff bus, ending the morning shift for some in the most tragic way possible. Tears flowed freely as victims were remembered, described as hardworking, dedicated and deeply loved.
It was a sad scene. We say a lot of sorrow to the families. It was hard seeing them. And even breaking the news to them, we didn't know how to do it.
Their absence would be felt across our operations, in our meetings, and in the small and everyday moments that make KPC not just any other workplace.
Kenya Pipeline Company says a joint technical committee with Kenya Railways is already probing the cause of the accident.
And I do hope we'll be able to get the learnings from this tragedy, as we continue to strengthen our protocols so that such a loss will never touch our KPC family again.
Beyond investigations, the government has pledged to fully cover medical expenses, while the company has committed to seek ways to financially support the bereaved.
Itafuatiliwa ili at least kuwe na some compensation through the proper channels. Haiwezi rudisha maisha but it will make life a little bit better for those who are left behind.
The accident, which happened last Friday, claimed 9 lives and injured others when the staff bus carrying 33 people was hit at a railway crossing along the Naivasha-Kasarani road. The 9 will be laid to rest on different dates, but together their memories will remain etched in the hearts of those they leave behind. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
And we pray their souls rest in eternal peace. We're due for a break. When we come back, a few more stories to run you through sports, and then thereafter, some bowlers and others who managed footballers will be on the bench to talk football. We'll be discussing CHAN 2024 and the stars who are finding the shining light and lifting up the spirit of the nation. We'll be talking the dugout tactical team led by Benny McCarthy, former Bafana soccer star, who had his football plight with Blackburn Rovers and at some point at Old Trafford was also part of the technical team. All that in the context of what lies ahead for Kenya in its football dreams ahead of AFCON 2027, the tactical selection team, soccer administration, management of the head coaches, and all that goes into it beyond CHAN 2024. You're watching JKL, and we are back after the break. Stay tuned. Preparing for grade 10. Government rolls out construction of 1,600 science laboratories in public. You're watching JKL, and thanks for staying with us. The government has rolled out the construction of 1,600 science laboratories in public schools across the country. A major step in preparation for the transition of students to senior school. According to the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Ambassador Julius Bitok, the government is committed to ensuring 100% transition of pioneer grade 9 learners to grade 10. As Emily Chebet details, the Principal Secretary also emphasized the need for multi-stakeholder approach to ensure the successful implementation of the competency-based education.
Basic Education Principal Secretary Ambassador Professor Julius Bitok has assured parents that all 1.2 million grade 9 learners set to sit for their final examinations in October will be placed in senior schools. Bitok emphasizing that all necessary measures are in place to facilitate the fast transition to senior school under the competency-based education since its inception.
We have started rolling out the construction of 1,600 laboratories around the country. For those schools, so the small schools which didn't have labs, we mapped out 1,600 of them, and we are hoping that in the next 3 months, all the labs will be ready. In the last 2 years, we have been able to construct 23,000 classrooms around the country to support competence-based education.
The PS who toured the Gravity CBC Center in Nairobi called for greater collaboration in ensuring that learners gain hands-on experience, a core pillar of the competency-based education. He also acknowledged the vital contribution of private and faith-based organizations in supporting the successful implementation of the new curriculum.
This is a model center that can be replicated in our region so that learners can get first-hand experience. What has impressed me most is that they are using locally available materials to create a learning environment that learners can appreciate. You know, sometimes when you bring things from abroad, learners may not really connect with them. But with the equipment we've seen in Gravity Resource Center, the learners can really connect to them very easily because they are locally available, simple materials, simple equipment.
The resource centers stand as a model of everything that the competency-based education embodies. From basic home hygiene, cooking, cleaning and bed making, to complex topics like human body systems, learners are immersed in practical hands-on learning. Students are introduced to motor mechanics from the ground up, fully equipped with spare parts, making it easier for learners to understand how mechanical systems work, unlike the 844 system, where students were often required to memorize concepts. CBE emphasizes learning by doing. The Principal Secretary urged education stakeholders to support innovative initiatives, stressing that every region needs well-resourced centers to equip learners with real-life skills ahead of final assessments. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
Machakos County has admitted to minimal delivery of healthcare services in the county, but denies claims of total paralysis of the county's healthcare system due to the ongoing nurses' strike. County Secretary Muya Ndambuki, who was responding to a story aired by Citizen TV on Tuesday, showing empty hospital beds and patients abandoning hospital wards after nurses downed their tools, said that the county is making progress. While seemingly defending, however, the neglect of patients, the county has termed the strike by the nurses as a nationwide problem that's not unique to Machakos, and has called for talks with the Kenya Union of Nurses and Midwives.
Have been affected by the strike. Other aspects of the Machakos Level 5 facility are still doing what they are supposed to do. All clinics are running as expected. Our outpatient is still transacting business as usual.
The other cadres are on duty. Doctors are on duty, clinical officers are on duty, lab is working, and they are giving services to the people of Machakos. We have also got nurses on lockup to stand in for those who are on strike. So I'm appealing to people of Machakos not to shy away, to cap for services in our facilities.
The latest figures from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that the unemployment rate in the country has dropped to 6.2%. The report highlights that agriculture, forestry and fishing have become the second largest private sector employers, generating over 300,000 jobs. As the nation reflects on the gains made through a devolution that's now being held, its conference held in Homa Bay County, which is set to showcase its strengths in agriculture and the blue economy, contributing to the country's food security. Here is Laura Otieno with that report.
Every week, Eric Mboya gathers his peers for their debrief. Today, they review their sales, celebrating a sharp rise in business over the past few days. Just a meter away, a thick mat of green algae floats on a makeshift pond. For the past 3 years, Eric has been leading a group of young people under the Kenabu CBO, pioneering the cultivation of azolla, a nutrient-rich feed for animals.
Grow very fast. Ukieka kwa pond, like 3-4 days, you can do harvesting of azolla. 3-4 days, just imagine you are doing your harvesting. But to us, we put our ponds, we organize our ponds in a strategic way, where that each and every day in a week we harvest 1 pond.
Changamoto yenye inakuwa like kama unafanya hii ya agriculture na sasa kwa business part inakuanga challenging, sababu kama una like hauna hiyo knowledge, una records, yani wewe hujui umeuza mboga kiasi gani, wewe uko tu wewe unauza uko na pesa.
We are training youths about civic engagement, civic education and economic empowerment. Lazima tukuje kwa farm yako uangalie challenges. So from there, kama unafanya vizuri, unaweza apply grant in SOFCO, and the grant is for youths only.
In Homa Bay County, beekeeping isn't just a livelihood, it's the heartbeat of the economy. According to the county government, 74% of the labor force is involved in agriculture, contributing nearly a quarter of the county's GDP. Alongside thriving crops like pineapples and sweet potatoes, the county is now inviting investors to the Riwa Industrial Park to boost value addition and transform raw produce into market-ready goods.
We are in the process of setting up in Kabondo, Kasipul, a warehouse to aggregate the sweet potatoes, as well as to do sweet potato pelleting. We have also discussed with some private sector partners, Transara, who want sweet potato pellets for purposes of manufacturing of animal feeds. So we are going to do sweet potato pelleting in this coming financial year. That's the plan that we have.
The devolved unit is also tapping into the edible oil value chain, focusing on crops like sunflower, palm oil and soybeans.
What we want to do is to get more private sector partnerships mobilize our farmers so that our farmers produce, provide, and then the private sector helps us as far as value addition is concerned, because that is their business. They know how to do it better.
With the largest portion of Lake Victoria lying within its borders, Homa Bay's fisherfolk are embracing sustainable fishing practices. The county is estimated to produce around 53,000 metric tons of fish annually, positioning it as a key hub for fish processing in the region.
Because you see, when now fish go out to Uganda in large quantities, imagine if that fish was processed in Homa Bay, how many young Kenyans would be getting opportunities to get livelihood from employment that would be created by those. What if the government would intervene and reduce the cost of power to the fishing factories so that they are able to uptake all the fish that you are getting here?
At the last Blue Economy Conference, President William Ruto outlined a bold plan to boost the sector's annual contribution to the GDP from 8.7 billion shillings to 150 billion shillings. Stakeholders now calling for coordinated efforts to ensure these ambitious targets are achieved.
Look at what I've talked about, how we can conserve our shorelines to attract investment into the hospitality industry. Now, you look at all this, you look at sand, you look at all the minerals that you can get out of the blue economy. And we can say there is vast potential. The only thing remaining is to work together with the technocrats, identify areas which can bring us money and areas that can improve this economy.
Homa Bay, like the rest of the counties that host Lake Victoria, is known for its prospects in the blue economy. However, agribusiness is emerging as a major front in tackling the youth unemployment crisis, not only for the young people within this county, but for the region at large. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV, in Homa Bay.
Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki has faulted his predecessor Rigathi Gachagua for repeatedly using foul language to boost his popularity, saying it tarnishes both his own image and that of other leaders locally and internationally. Speaking at his Irunduni home while hosting women grassroots leaders from Tharaka Nithi County, an evidently concerned Kindiki urged the DCP leader to prioritize policy as a tool in politics rather than insults. He also called on women across the country to play a key role in guiding and nurturing the youth, encouraging them to reject leaders who incite violence and the destruction of public and private property.
Ati mtu anakuja kutukanana hapa. Ati hapa Meru, sijui wapi ati anatukana. Unatukana nani wewe? Wewe unajua sisi ni kina nani? Naona tu wakiongea na wako na kiburi. Mtu akuja ongea mambo yake lakini akuwe na heshima. Wewe ukuja ongea, ukimaliza ukwende. Lakini ukikuja na maneno ya pelepele mingi, utajua sisi ni kina nani jameni. Mimi nataka sisi wote kama wazazi tujihusishe kuambia vijana wetu, unaweza kuwa na maoni tofauti. Labda haukubaliani na mbunge. Labda haukubaliani na principal wa shule. Labda haukubaliani hata na rais. Lakini sema yale mambo bila kuharibu mali, bila kuharibu biashara.
The Kenya Petroleum Workers Union rejects the proposed sale of Kenya Pipeline Company, citing fears of job losses, instead calling for operational streamlining. Workers at the Kenya Pipeline Company are demanding job security assurances as the government moves to sell a majority stake in the state corporation. The Kenya Petroleum Workers Union Secretary General George Okoth says 742 unionized employees fear redundancies, accusing the management of ignoring their concerns despite holding sensitization meetings. Jasmine Wamboi has that report.
Appearing as the last party before the Joint Committees on Energy and Public Debt and Privatization, the Secretary General of the Kenya Petroleum Workers Union, George Okoth, now says that members of staff at the Kenya Pipeline Company are living in fear over looming redundancies should the government privatize the company.
It appears that this matter is being rushed and workers are getting worried as to why
the rush all of a sudden.
Employees argue that the government could boost efficiency without privatizing the company, saying KPC's failure to generate significantly higher profits is solely due to poor governance and widespread corruption.
We believe that KPC, if put in proper and safe hands, it can deliver more. We can realize this money that is being sought here within a short time without necessarily going to privatization.
Energy and Treasury Cabinet Secretaries have assured workers that there will be no job losses, with any affected staff compensated under their CBA. But the union is demanding a legally binding commitment.
We want to be guaranteed that the remainder of our life at KPC, we are not going to see this thing called redundancy.
The government defends a plan citing a cash crunch and the need to raise 149 billion shillings for the 2025-2026 budget to fund development projects and clear pending bills without borrowing.
If we can finish this by September, October, that will enable us to proceed because there are many things within the budget.
And as the public hearing comes to a close, members of parliament still have lingering questions on the plan.
In your own understanding, do you think that was an adequate and meaningful public participation as required by the law?
Where will the 100 billion go? Just tell us where you intend to spend that money.
Jasmine Wamboi, Citizen TV.
Kenyan borrowers have received relief after the Central Bank of Kenya cut its base lending rate to 9.5% from 9.75%, the second reduction since June. The move is aimed at pushing commercial banks to lower their double-digit lending rates and aligning with global trends of easing monetary policy amid controlled inflation. Jimmy Mbogo has the details of that report.
The August meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, which resolved to further cut the rates for a seventh consecutive time, says the move has been necessitated by the country's stable inflation rate, which has remained below the targeted range, supported by lower food inflation and stability in energy prices. A move that the CBK now hopes will signal the market to lower the cost of credit for Kenyans.
The average lending rates in the domestic market have continued to decline, while private sector credit growth has continued to improve, although the pace has been less than desirable. The committee therefore concluded that there was scope for a further easing of the monetary policy stance to augment the previous policy actions aimed at stimulating lending by banks to the private sector.
The central bank further says, following the convergence of a new risk-based pricing model between the CBK and commercial banks, lenders are expected to have their new risk-based pricing models approved by their boards within 3 months to enable them disburse credit to their customers based on their risk profile.
And then once they have been approved, we expect implementation, 3 months of implementation. So in sum, we expect a 6-month implementation period. Of course, this is fairly short compared to what we had experienced in the last pricing model, which took quite a number of years for all the banks to comply.
And despite stability in the foreign exchange market, the central bank says it is still exploring the use of gold as it seeks to diversify the country's base of reserve assets, noting that it is currently analyzing the potential of acquiring gold as a reserve.
There are teams that are visiting the country just to go and see the potential for gold, but I think just to make a long story short, it is our intention to diversify our reserve position and to include some gold element.
Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Farmers in the county of Kiambu are embracing orthodox tea farming in the county, which is a premium alternative to conventional tea that promises better earnings and access to global markets and reshaping the livelihoods of the farmers in the county and rural households' economies. On Smart Farm this week, Dennis Otieno visited one farm in Lari in Kiambu County to explore how this shift is changing livelihoods.
In the hilly, misty landscape of Nyanduma Ward in Lari, Kiambu County, rows of vibrant tea bushes stretch across the countryside. But this is no ordinary tea. Farmers like Mary Wanjiko are turning to a more refined and profitable variety, orthodox tea, and it's opening new doors.
Wakati nilioleka hapa nilikuja nikakuta ni sehemu ya majani chai, ingawa haikuwa mingi wakati huo, na hata nikapendezwa sana na hii sehemu. Ndio nikafikiria hata mimi nianze hii kulima wa majani chai. Ndio sasa tulianza na mzee wangu, kutoka hapo tuliendelea kupanda kidogo kidogo mpaka ikafika sasa hapo mahali imefika sasa.
Mary farms on 9 acres with about 3.5 acres under tea. Like many farmers in Lari, she's embraced the orthodox variety, which is processed differently from conventional CTC teas.
Nasikia pia ndio inafanya tuna pesa yetu inaongezeka.
Unlike CTC teas that are machine cut, orthodox teas are hand rolled, sun dried, and curated with care. The process is more labor intensive, but the returns are far better. Mary is contracted by Kagwe Tea Factory, which has begun processing orthodox teas for global export. At the field level, extension officers are training farmers on quality-focused harvesting.
The issue of orthodox tea is a new technology that is really coming up, not only in Kenya, but in the entire of Africa. So we are out here talking to the farmers and encouraging them to ensure that they provide very good quality teas to the factories.
The farm practices may remain the same, but key improvements, such as replacing aging tea bushes with higher yielding clones, are ensuring the leaves meet export grade standards.
We have seedlings that were there quite sometimes during the colonial eras. And now those are the teas that we are doing replacement with, we call them moribund teas. So we are replacing with the new, what we call elite clones. So that those elite clones will give you the best of the teas.
Orthodox tea cultivation is transforming small farms into thriving enterprises thanks to its superior quality and variety. This shift has enabled farmers to diversify their produce and tap into premium markets.
Also, we have seen these teas attracting a lot of interest from these countries like Russia, from those countries like Iran, and these are some of the people who have realized the benefits. Even Europe, UK, Germany, they are really getting a lot of interest.
Back at the Kagwe Tea Factory, production lines are rolling, literally. Orthodox tea is manually crafted to retain its aroma, texture, and health benefits, making it a hit among health-conscious global consumers.
You see, in terms of the high blood pressure, they control the high blood pressure. They also anti-cholesterol. For those people who take this stuff teas, they are able to fight cholesterol. They prevent aging. They also prevent memory loss.
While the international market holds promise, farmers like Mary are already noticing the local benefits, stable pay, job creation, and growing interest from nearby buyers.
Tunategemea hiyo international market sana, lakini hata hapa locally tunaitumia hii chai sana.
You can compare a CTC is fetching around 2.5 USD. And you get this other one, just the normal orthodox is getting even 5 USD. And you also realize something. It doesn't have a very big difference between the factories like in the west of Rift or the east of Rift. The prices are nearly the same.
Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
Business News, brought to you by Definite.
Strikers are back in the country after a successful trip to Cameroon, where they clinched the Africa Under-20 Women Volleyball crown. The juniors stamped the Egyptians 3-0 in the semi-finals before blanking the hosts Cameroon 3-1 in the capital. The team has qualified for the World Championships with the technical bench asking for ample preparation time to work on the team's weaknesses.